I'd like to make this video today for people who struggle with the opinion of other people, who struggle with their own self-belief, and sort of offer encouragement for that. Because it's human nature, below a certain level of, say, psychological development or spiritual development, to sort of judge yourself to other people, to judge yourself to society standards. So that's normal, you know, you're not alone in that. And something that I sort of point towards when I speak to people is that the average person hasn't got their shit together, right? And that isn't like a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, if you speak to the average person, they'll all say similar things like, you know, they're unhappy or they're not content. You know, they think they should be doing something different with their life. So your problems, although, you know, the content of it will be different, people struggle with similar things, right? And I know, speaking for myself, that although I sort of talk about, you know, running your own race and doing what's in your own spirit and your own soul, I know I've caught myself in the past looking at other people, comparing myself to other people and thinking, should I do what these people do? Will I get the results that these people will get if I just copy them, right? And, you know, in the world of social media, that's really, really easy to do. If you don't have your own autonomy and your own agency, that's incredibly easy to simply copy people, mirror what they're doing, and expecting the results that they're getting. But the best you can get there is a mirror of what they're doing, right? And even then a mirror of their success, if you execute that perfectly. That'll still leave your soul empty, right? Because it's not you. And that doesn't mean to experiment with what you're doing. It doesn't mean not trying loads of different things, if it's business, different business models or whatever else. That isn't to say don't try these things, because what I tend to find is that when you try a load of stuff, some of that will stick and some of it you can run with. It's about doing as much as you can, as quickly as you can, getting the feedback as quickly as you can, and making those changes and alterations and iterations so that whatever you're trying to build and create can come about as quickly as possible, right? And that doesn't mean not take a long-term view, because you should, but you can get to where you want to get to quicker by failing as quickly as you can and iterating as quickly as you can. So don't worry about failing. Fail as quickly as possible, right? That's something else society tends to you know, run away from, is failing, which is the only way that we learn. Just make sure that you're failing towards something that you really want to be doing, a real mission, a real purpose, something that you want to have impact with, rather than just something that's you know, been placed there by culture or society. For me, everybody's different, right? But for me, I have to slow down a couple of times a day. So the world asks me a lot of questions during the day to do with business, right? So I've got multiple property investment companies and other business interests as well. And the world asks a lot of questions. You know, you need to be doing this. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of bureaucracy. I have to deal with all that stuff. But if I take, at the moment, I'm getting up quite early, 5 o'clock, 5:30 or something, and I'll go for a long walk, and I won't have anything in my ears. I'll just sort of be contemplating on this stuff. Am I doing the right thing, or you know, how can I be more present in the day? And these contemplation times that I take in the day are usually very much more impactful than the work I'm doing, right? In fact, it infuriates me at the end of the day if I haven't slowed down at some point to actually take stock of what I'm doing, where we're at, where I'm at. And you can go on, you know, little mini holidays, little mini breaks. It only has to be a couple of days. Get yourself out into nature, get yourself surrounded by greenery rather than just, you know, sitting at a laptop, getting up, doing the same routine over and over again. If you break those patterns, because we're creatures of habit, right? We run our own patterns. What I found is if you break those patterns, maybe that goes, I like nature, I like getting into nature, it sort of settles me very quickly. And it's like, there's a saying, isn't there, that's like the best ideas that you have will be in the shower or something. It's when you've completely switched off and then an idea will drop in. We need to sort of purposely put these into our diaries to allow that to happen. When you're so et up in the day-to-day movement of things, these communications, I like to call them, very rarely actually take place because you're so et up and consumed by what the world's asking of you in that moment. Because in reality, the only competition that there is with yourself, is the standards that you hold yourself to. The standards that the world asks of you are societal and usually are below where I at least hold myself to, is far higher than the standard the world sets for itself. Nowadays, I think if you can stick to something for longer than between 6 months and a year only, you can sort of get ahead of the crowd, right? But I say it with respect. Most people have no interest in bettering themselves to you know, a degree far ahead of where they're already at. They just sort of let life beat them up. I remember reading a book called Outwitting the Devil, I think it was called, by Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And in Outwitting the Devil, he called these people drifters, and they just sort of drift through life. And most people are drifters. It's not like a judgment call, it's just something that's seemingly objectively true, that the people will just allow life to beat them up and then complain and moan about what it is that's beat them up, when they've got the power and agency to be able to change their life. I've found that having a psychological and also a spiritual fundamental worldview, which is to say, like, I consume a lot of books and wisdom, I like to think, from people who are far cleverer and wiser and more advanced than I am. And this allows me to keep in my own lane, right? Because it's easy to be pulled away in all these million different directions. And when I sort of study myself through these books and sort of content online and essays and whatever, it creates a sense of clarity, which allows you to then live out your own purpose, to not be pulled into other people's worlds, to set boundaries for yourself, to not become one of the herd. Because it's not necessarily about doing more or getting more done. Very often it's removing the clutter that's in the way. By removing things from your life, the clarity takes place sort of organically, it's natural. Whereas keep adding more into your life is usually just a way of procrastinating a deeper form of removing yourself from one's own path. So take a look at your life, have a look. Where are you running somebody else's race? When you see people on social media, where are you trying to implement what they're trying to implement to get the results they're getting? Because I can assure you that's not going to make you happy. That's not going to fulfill you. If you're living somebody else's life and trying to have what they have and be who they are, it's not going to fulfill you in any way. You might probably feel like a fraud. You can see people seemingly much further ahead of you. You've got no idea what their background was like. You've got no idea their upbringing or the context of how they've got there. You could have had a much more difficult upbringing. You could have had a better upbringing. You could have come from nothing, no money. They could have come from money. You know, the comparison game is what was it Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. It's very true, and it's only noticeable as and when you've sort of gone through it. So yeah, compare yourself all you want, you're not going to be any happier with it. Win your own race.